at the time, I was like, this is terrifying. I'm not a CEO. Like, CEOs are big and fancy and they're in big office buildings and they've got, a big desk. Here I am in my home office. We were going to support 100,000 women over the next 5 years. 2 years ago, we hit that. And now it is to equip 1 million women by 2030 so they can build profitable, sustainable, and impactful businesses.
Welcome to How to Help a Few Billion People, a podcast where we feature entrepreneurs that prioritize purpose over profits and impact over investors. In this episode, we're going to talk to Julia Taylor, the wise, the thoughtful, the inspirational founder of GeekPack, who started her own business during a time of necessity. And in order to start that, she taught herself how to code, and she taught herself how to start and market and grow her own business. Along the way, when she would go to online forums seeking guidance, she would face discrimination and just outright negativity as she was starting to get advice and grow an organization. So she did what any normal person would do. She decided to start a business to solve that very problem. She chose to do this as a mission-driven organization. Along her growth path, she's built a self-sustaining organization. She's found additional growth capital to add even more value to her network through grants. But along her entire growth, she's been able to keep an entire ownership and keep the organization committed on impact. And it is impactful. GeekPack has already helped empower over 10,000 women to build the skills in order to advance their careers and grow their own businesses. And they have aspirations to reach 1 million by 2030. They not only have a direct marketplace where individuals can sign up to learn how to start their own businesses, but they also partner with companies like Verizon and others who have built in brand level partnerships with them to also support and build up the skills and know-how and connections of female entrepreneurs. In our wide-ranging podcast, we talked about how do you build trust as a leader with your employees? How do you get your very, 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 very first customer? How do you build trust with those customers? And how do you keep innovating on their behalf? We also talk about some of the lows of entrepreneurship. How do you deal with it when you have to lay people off, especially if those people used to be your customers and they have deep trust and commitment to the same mission that you're working on? We talked about how do you recover from that? How do you build a team back up? How do you reinstill motivation and find new avenues for growth during really challenging economic times? Julia was open, she was thoughtful, and she shared some incredible tools and frameworks that I know will help any entrepreneur think about how to solidify their mission, how to communicate that, and how to invest in some themes like transparency and values and other tools so that when things get hard, your organization has the infrastructure and foundation in place to move forward. I know you're going to love this episode. Thank you so much for tuning into this. And without further ado, let's jump in and hear from Julia. Julia, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. So excited.
Awesome. So, Julia, I heard you speak at SoCap. And one of the things that really kind of caught my attention was how you started this. And we're going to get into some company building things. I can't wait to talk into those moments. But you always kind of hear that, investors always want to invest in organizations where the entrepreneur was like solving their very own problem. Tell me a little bit more about the problem you were encountering that actually then led to the founding of GeekPack.
Yeah, sure. So I love getting to tell this story because it's very personal as to why I started GeekPack. So I'm going to go back in time. We're going to go all the way back to 2008 because that's kind of where all this began. I'm going to date myself now as well. I used to work for the U.S. intelligence community, had an amazing job. I lived in D.C. I was deploying all over the place. And in 2008, I was deployed to Afghanistan. And it was a, fantastic experience in so much as it can be. And that was my first deployment to Afghanistan. And while I was there, I met my now husband. And we fell in love in a war zone, and so much as you can do that. And again, that was my first deployment. He'd done multiple, I did more, and we did long distance for a long time. And the thing that's to note about him is he's British. So long distance, deploying doing all the things. And he's retired now, but he was in the British Special Forces. So I decided after a couple years to leave my job, move to the UK, and I became a military spouse, which I'm immensely proud of. But my career progression took a nosedive because we moved, and I was bouncing from job to job, and they were kind of blah 9-to-5 jobs, nothing like what I was doing before. So in one of those 9-to-5 jobs, I randomly came across coding just out of nowhere. I thought, oh, this is fun. So I thought, well, I'm going to teach myself as much as I can using Google and YouTube. So I go and I'm teaching myself how to code, and I start to think, well, if I could teach myself to do this, could I start my own business and then have my own career progression and be able to kind of work from anywhere? And this was pre-COVID, so remote work wasn't really a thing. And I did. I taught myself how to code. I started my own business. I was really fortunate to make $70,000 in my first year as the business, and things were going really well. So we'll fast forward to 2018, and that is when my husband retired from the military. And at the time, we're living in North Carolina. He'd been transitioned across, and we decide we're going to sell everything, and we're going to move into an RV, and we're going to travel around the U.S. and try to figure out where we want to settle, because we were bouncing all over the place. And again, pre-COVID, before living in an RV was cool. So we sell everything, we pack ourselves into RV, we drive west because we know we want to be out west. And while we're traveling, I'm on social media talking about how I started my business, how I am, traveling and working at the same time. And people are saying to me, hang on, I want to be able to do what you do. Can you teach us to do that? So I think to myself, well, yeah, sure. I don't have a teaching background, but I can tell you how I did it, how I wish I had learned. And that is where GeekPack came from. And I started teaching other, primarily women, how to learn tech skills, how to build a business, how to start a business, how to market themselves, how to find clients, and have financial independence, have time independence. And that's how GeekPack got started. The name actually is really important, because as I was teaching myself on Google and YouTube, I would go and ask questions and try and get help, and I would get made fun of. And that was not fun, to say the least. And I decided, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to create a community where there's no such thing as a silly question and where mean people are not allowed. And that's exactly what GeekPack is.
Yeah. And, that's part of the story that I remember. It's like you were out there, you were learning, you're putting yourself out there, and then people are responding in the way that people do on the internet. Right. And so,
Yep.
But the thing that I really want to click into here is, that happens to a lot of us, right? We post things on the internet, and then, we're told certain things, or told to get off of certain things. But your reaction to that, it seems like, was like a doubling down of, this is important, and I'm not the only one doing it, and I'm actually going to start something in order to create that community. Like, out of all the ways that you could have, gone down at that, juncture point, what was it that actually, gave you the confidence or the feeling that you could actually make that work in order to then create that place?
So, gotta be honest with you, it was years, not a short period of time. So I started learning and teaching myself in 2014. I didn't do anything with that until 2017.
Oh, wow.
Because of the hurdles and the lack of confidence that I keep coming up against. So I certainly don't want to paint a picture of, I was so confident and I pushed through regardless. I did, but it took a long time, because I didn't have a community or a support system. And at the time, because of the previous job that I had with the intelligence community, I didn't have like a really big social media presence. And it was in 2017 when I'd learned all these, I taught myself to do all these things, but I was terrified to put myself out there. I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know, LLC, like all the things that I now know. I didn't know any of that. And it was early 2017, I'm certain, when I came across, it must have been a Facebook ad. I came across a woman who was basically saying, I hear you. I have a community that will help you kind of answer all these questions. And to this day, she is still my business coach and has been since 2017. I had a exciting thing to share with her today, and I sent her a message. So I joined her community, and I was like, oh, wow, like there's other people who have gone through this, who are building businesses, who are scared, who are building confidence. And seeing it there gave me the ability to go, if they've done it, I could build a community over here that's similar but has, the techie feel and the geek, and that's what I did. But it took years.
Yeah. And so I was hoping to get there actually a little bit later in the show, but this is kind of a nice segue into it, which is, there's so much business advice, right? There's so much, but I feel like you were able to hit on something, because my understanding too is like from launch, there was some pretty rapid traction, right? You've already supported, and I forget the numbers, but maybe you can even jump in here. How many women have already benefited from your community?
We've trained over 10,000 women entrepreneurs, and
Incredible.
Our reach is much bigger than that, because we have a lot of free resources. We have our app, we have social media, we have a newsletter, but kind of actively trained is over 10,000.
Yeah, incredible, right? And so I think you're in this spot, and you're seeing some resources that exist, right? But there was something you're like, there's still something missing for a certain type of person. And obviously you had your own experience, right? So that's always great when entrepreneurs are solving their own problem. But what gave you the confidence, or what was the insight that you picked up that said, yeah, look, there is guidance on how to grow a business. There is guidance on how to learn how to code, but I'm kind of marrying these two things here together, and I'm going to be able to start something that's a gap in the market. How did you figure out that was a market gap, not just your own experience?
Honestly, talking to people, like there's no, I don't think there's really a magic bullet or a secret to kind of product market fit, apart from literally talking to people, like,
Yeah.
and I did it virtually. And whether it's, DMs, or it's one-on-one calls, or hosting live events and seeing in the chat, emails, we're always asking our audience, because you just don't know until you talk to people. And I knew my personal experience, and I spoke to a lot of, RVing. I knew people were saying, I would love to be able to start my own business, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know how to do this techie thing. I thought, I can marry those.
Yeah. This is one of these fun things too that I kind of like to explore in this show, which is, we hear these things like, yeah, go talk to people, go talk to customers. And then entrepreneurs are like, yeah, great reminder, I'm gonna go talk to customers. And they like sit down on their computer and they're like, how do I go talk to customers, right? Or potential customers. This might be back like a little bit, but do you remember, like, how did you go find the very first few people? What were those very first conversations like? And if you remember it and would be willing to share, like, what was the very first time that you actually asked for money?
Oh, gosh. Yes, I remember that. All right. So I'll kind of go backwards a bit. On social media, like it's a powerful tool as a business owner, especially digital entrepreneurs. And I started with Instagram. And I don't do them anymore, but I was doing Instagram stories, and I was literally just telling stories about my travel, but also my business. And I'm asking questions, and it was people in the DMs, and people emailing me. And I started to build an email list so I could have, that communication with people. I could ask them questions. I started a free Facebook group at the time. So I would invite them in, and we had all these touch points. And I could use all that data. And it's at the time, because I was traveling, and then of course we went into COVID, I built this ecosystem where my ideal audience is coming to me, telling me what their problems are, and I'm able to talk to them one-on-one. So I just used free software that, Instagram, Facebook groups, and email list. I started an email list.
Yeah.
And I just used those to start to talk to people, and then they got to know me personally because through social media and professionally in the Facebook group, and I'm answering questions. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I was just adding a lot of value before asking for someone's credit card information.
Cool. I love that. As a side story here with Moving Worlds, when we started Moving Worlds, it had actually started from a year that I'd spent traveling and volunteering. And I kept this blog, which like in retrospect, I'm just like so embarrassed by it. I was like, why did I write these things? Who read it? Right. But people did. And people started to ask me, hey, I'm interested in transitioning from my corporate job into impact, or I'm traveling and I would love to engage more with social enterprises, or like, and the questions were all over the place. Like, what books did you read? Who else should I follow? Like, any documentaries to watch? All these things, and just total strangers. And I remember then just emailing with people, and then eventually you kind of got to this place when it was actually somebody external, my co-founder Derek Nord, who ultimately said, like, I think there's a business here, right? And that ultimately is the question that kind of started it all. But it seems like for you, actually very similar. You were just, maybe you didn't. Well, actually, I'm curious, did you already know that this was a business that you were thinking about getting off the ground, or you were literally just kind of doing this on social, building some influencer status, thinking about what to do, and so you were just engaging people out of curiosity and research?
I did think, I hoped it could be a business, but I didn't know for sure. And that's why kind of talking to people and hearing from them and knowing what they wanted and what the gap was. And I thought, well, I can fill that. And then when I did ask for, and I did a beta launch of a program that I hadn't even built yet, but they knew that. And I said, look, it's going to be a beta launch. It's going to be, a ridiculously low price, and I'm gonna build it in real time. Each week there's going to be new stuff, and I was teaching them how to code, how to build their own website, how to start their own business, building websites for other people, how to market themselves. Like business in a box, basically, is what I was building, and it worked, and we sold. I think we had over 90 women join in that first launch. And it was over $13,000.
Wow. So that was your first, that was your first money. You
Yes.
were super transparent with people. This is an experiment.
Oh, yeah.
I'm running this. This is what you're going to learn.
Yes.
Here's my credentials, so to say. And
Absolutely.
people, out of curiosity. Yeah. Oh, please.
I was going to say because I'd been talking about because I built all of it myself, and I had my own marketing agency that I'm talking about me doing the thing. Yeah. People are saying, I want to be able to do the thing. And then it's, okay, well, I will teach you how to do the thing in this container for this amount. And we're going to do it together as a group. And we're going to go through. And it was wildly successful. And that program has multi-million dollars since 2018.
Yeah. Wow. And the life's touch of 10 million women, yes. and then all the businesses and organizations that they've gone on to serve. Yeah. And do you remember the very first transaction? Did you send a web form? Was it do you remember the actual mechanics of the first dollars?
Yeah. What was I? It was either PayPal or Stripe. I might have had both, but it was one of the two. And I remember it so clearly. It was October 24th of 2018. We were in Moab, Utah, in our RV. I remember the RV site we were at, and I remember sitting on the plastic sofa in the RV, and I knew exactly when it was going to go live. And I remember kind of refreshing, and then seeing, and it was $97. That was how much the thing was. And seeing it come through. And then my parents were visiting, and I remember we went to breakfast, and I'm just what's I'm eating breakfast in Moab, and there's this money coming in. It was just a real surreal moment, but I remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow, funny. I'm with you. I remember in one of the things that we did, I was flying on the way to a conference, and I we had just launched something, and then Wi-Fi on the plane, right? I check it. I see the email with first receipt, and I remember just this I just like all of the emotions kind of at once. Like it's kind of
Oh,
incredible to have that. Yeah. How fun.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So okay, so you've got this thing, you're independent, you're exploring, you're married at the time, or
Yes, yes,
you're
yeah.
so yeah, that's
Hmm.
right. So you're married at the time. And at some point you say, gosh, I could just be the solopreneur. I've got this cool thing going, but you decide to grow a team and to build. Was that an easy decision for you? Like, was it just a no-brainer, and did it move? Did you have to think about that a lot, of whether you want to kind of go in that direction, and what helped you move through that decision?
I think pre-COVID, I did not want to have a team, mostly out of my own insecurity because I'd never managed anyone before. Like when I worked for the government, I was relatively independent. Of course, I had bosses and things like that, but I didn't oversee anyone. And then the other jobs that I did when we were living in the UK, I didn't oversee anyone. So the story I told myself was, well, I can't have a team because I don't know how to manage anyone. I don't have that professional experience. I've never been trained to do all the things. And then COVID hit, and we exploded
Wow.
because we had already established ourselves as teaching women how to start their own business from home. So we did an event in May of 2020 called Geek Week, and it was a free virtual event, and it just exploded. It blew up.
Wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, the amount of people we had kind of coming into our ecosystem, I couldn't do on my own. So there were a handful of women that had been in the program or been in our community for a couple years. And I remember just sending them a Facebook DM saying, can you please help? Like, I will pay you, please help. We've got all these people coming in, and they are still with the team to this day. And so and over the years, like as these stars have kind of popped up in the community, and they're helping, and they're clearly, they understand our mission and our vision, and they want to be a part of it, and they're not asking for anything. They're the ones where I've said, hey, would you like to be a part of the team? Would you like to be a part of the team? And I have learned over the years how to be a leader and how to manage my way. And I've read the books, and I've had the coaches, and I've really like been okay with the fact that this is me, this is who I am. I'm empathetic. I used to hate conflict. I used to be very conflict averse.
Yeah.
And over time and over experiences, now I'm like, no, I'm more than happy to have a conversation that needs to be had, to move through it and carry on with what needs to be kind of carried. So I'm constantly learning and trying to be a better leader and a better manager, and empowering my team to lead and manage as well. But it's all taken a lot of time.
Yeah. Kind of rewiring our brain a little bit to show up better in certain situations is no easy task. No easy task.
Absolutely.
Is there a couple threads that we could go down here? And so I want to earmark one, because I want to come back to the moment at when you decided to build a team. But just because I love this topic of management, and it's so hard to get, like, to be a great manager, right? To be like competent enough. Almost every entrepreneur ends up in that situation. But I think to really move from confidence to excellence is such a long and hard journey. And some people are really naturally quick to pick up on it. But even those folks really seem to put a lot of effort into it. Were there any books or frameworks or concepts that you found like really, really help you, either just in your own internal feelings of competence and confidence, or maybe even in what your team members kind of reported back to you of like when they saw a marked change?
So I would say one book that immediately comes to mind is Start With Why, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I have had a couple coaches throughout my entire journey. I have kind of a business marketing coach that I referenced earlier, and a mindset coach who also has been a part of my journey from the start, that have been very impactful for a lot of things. But the marked moment, I remember this again pretty clearly. I hadn't really thought about it till now. Let's see, gosh, this was probably late 2021. I think it was late 2021. Things are still going well, and I go through a program that a friend of mine was running, and it's all about going from kind of where I was as a kind of small business owner, founder with a few team members, and stepping into the role as a CEO, which at the time I was like, this is terrifying. I'm not a CEO. CEOs are big and fancy and they're in big office buildings and they've got, a big desk. Here I am in my home office. That can't be me. So a lot of mindset stuff there. But the very first thing that we did in this program was articulating our mission, our vision, and our core values. And I remember when he said that, I remember thinking, oh, come on, that's so corporate, that's so fluffy. Like, let's get on to the meat of it. Let's get on to the important stuff. And that was one of the most impactful things that I did for the company, because he worked with me one-on-one, and mission, yes, core values, yes, very important. But vision for me, it has been the most important thing for the growth and scaling of the company, especially from an impact perspective, because he gave me a framework to write a vision that was really, really big, like big numbers. And I remember being so terrified to say the numbers out loud. And at the time, it was that we were going to support 100,000 women over the next 5 years, which were, big numbers, and I was terrified of them. 2 years ago, we hit that, and we decided to make it even bigger. And now it is to equip 1 million women by 2030 so they can build profitable, sustainable, and impactful businesses.
Yeah.
And just the fact, one of my KPIs as a CEO is how many times a week do I say our vision statement?
Oh, interesting.
Because it's so memorable, and it's something that my team gets behind. They can rattle off our vision in seconds. Yeah. My community, they know what the vision of GeekPack is, and they are proud to be a part of it. Yeah. We get emails regularly. It's, I love your vision, and I'm so proud that I'm one of them. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So that was a pivotal moment for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think especially when you're in like the day-to-day, just like go through of everything, you're like stepping back to do, but especially if there's other team members around, when you have to like then build unity and like words, you can debate a word for so long. Yep. Was there, you mentioned Simon Sinek earlier, right? Start with why. So he's kind of got the golden circle, like the why, how, what. You've mentioned like vision, mission, values. Was there a particular like tool or method that coach used, or you found yourself referenced, or you've shared with others that, as you kind of go through that vision mission exercise, you're like, oh, this is the resource, or this is the tip that we had that really helped us move through that in an effective way?
Really quite simple. And I've never heard it from anyone else. And the way that he, Sean is his name, told me back then, for the vision in particular, is to have a number and a period of time. So it could be like a revenue number over like by when. It could be a number of people by when. And he said you need to have those two things. And he gave me the permission. And I remember he used to work for a big bank. I can't remember, an insurance company. I can't remember. And he was explaining to us how this massive insurance company had this huge vision, and everyone that worked there were like, we're never gonna hit that. And they said, well, we don't know how, but we're gonna leave it open because maybe we're gonna merge with another company, and that's how we get those numbers. And he gave me permission to have a really big number. I have no idea how we're going to do that, but it allows me to dream big. It allows me to partner with organizations and say it, and people are like, oh wow, like if she's doing that, then it must be all going really well. Yeah. So it is just that permission and confidence to dream big and believe in myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, and I like that too. Like I'm a big fan of SMART goals, even though I need accountability from from others in order to actually write my own SMART goals,
Yeah.
right? But the research is like if you put something out there that is like measurable, distinguishable, time bounded,
Yes.
right? And if you like write it or put it somewhere public, right? And okay, especially if you're a remote team, you don't have a shared fridge, you can't have it on the refrigerator. But if you say it multiple times per week, right? That's kind of like having it on the fridge or the bathroom stalls or whatever companies kind of put it in
Yep.
order to increase that memorability of it. So cool. That's really helpful. Um, okay, so I want to come back to that moment where you kind of realize this is yeah, like, because you easily, I think, probably could have continued as a solopreneur here and still had some level of impact. But you got this flood of demand, so you needed help, and instead of just, I don't know, charging more and keeping it more limited, right? You decided to, hey, let's keep this accessible. Let's support a lot of people. That's more in line with your mission. And so you actually started to grow the team. Um, as you did that, was there a lot of like debate, deliberation, even just in your own head in terms of if you actually do that and create that like employment contract, or was it just so natural that you just kind of flowed right into it?
I just flowed right into it.
Yeah, just kind of
At
went
the
with it. And
time, yeah, at the time it was, and we had huge growth 2020, 2021, 2022. Those were, 3 big years. And I was just, higher, higher, higher. Let's, we got more people coming in. Let's hire. No, I didn't put a lot of thought into it. And, it's one of those things where I try not to ever look back and go, oh, I regret this or I regret that, or I don't love the M word, mistakes, because I learned from it.
yeah,
Everything that I've done in this journey has been I've either succeeded or I've learned something.
yeah, cool.
So no, I didn't really. And interestingly, let's see, it was early 2022. I joined my first ever accelerator program here in Durango, like incubator kind of accelerator program. Up until that moment, I didn't really understand kind of traditional business. I didn't understand VC funding. And so when I joined this accelerator program, I'm kind of thrown into the midst of all these terms that I wasn't familiar with, because I was literally just building. I was making money and hiring people and
Yeah,
adding value, and I was doing it the way that I knew how to do from I got to make money and I'm going to add value. Like that was it. So it wasn't until 2022 when I kind of got, oh, maybe I should formalize some of what I'm doing a little bit to really like make it a little bit more formal with contracts, and I transitioned into a C corp and things like that.
yeah. All those fun things that, yeah, exactly. You have to,
Yeah.
all of a sudden not focus on customers as much to do some of that like important, like kind of central ops and
Yeah,
foundational stuff. But
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
so so the organization grows, and there's this increased demand, and then as every organization goes through, right, then there's like you hit like a pit of despair kind of after some peak, right? And so if I understand it right, and to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing, right, there's this growth, the team grows, and then there's some shrinkage or there's some pullback, and I imagine in there you had to make some hard decisions as well. uh, can you tell us a little bit more about like exactly like it, and we spoke a little bit kind of before the show, right? You mentioned like you had to let some people go, and these people even came from your community. How did you like work through that as such a mission driven founder, right? Where it's like, especially these being community members, people that you had trained, right? Now they're hired, they're on your team, but now the business is like constricting, or you've overhired, right? You've grown too fast. Can you kind of maybe kind of go through time of what are all the events that led to the need to then let some folks go, and then how were you able to move through that process?
Yeah. Phew. Yeah, it was hard. I'll let's go back to 2023, because that's when things really started to slow down towards the end of 2022. And I think if you look at kind of consumer spending and the economy and people going back to work, it all kind of coincides with that. So towards the end of 2022, we start to notice, things are not as easy as they used to be. And on our end, our main way that we would do advertising was either organic on social media or paid advertising through Meta, so, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And though that got more expensive because a lot of other people were, doing the same. So our costs grew on the advertising side. I was hiring like crazy. You see those gifts of people with like the money. I'm like, let's hire, let's build the team. That was me. And I had I'd taken out, I still have an SBA loan, the EIDL loan. So I'm for lack of a better term, I'm rolling in cash.
Yeah.
So of course I'm hiring, and we hit 2023 and things are not going so well, and month on month we're not making, we're losing money. And I get to the end of 2023 and we're in the red significantly, 6 figures plus in the red. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, something needs to change. We need to look at this. And I go into 2024 and say, right, we need to make up for that from last year. Like I had plenty of finance experts who taught me to save over the years. So in the boom years, not only with the loan, but other, cash coming in, I could float negative 6 figures for a period of time. And 2024 came, and we've got all these plans, and we're doing this, and nothing is working, and we're trying. It's just hitting our head against the wall. It seems like all the time. Everything that used to work isn't working anymore. Right around that time, we're going, okay, we need to diversify our revenue, and we say, okay, how do we do that? Well, let's apply for some grants, which are slow burn. Let's partner with nonprofits. Let's find nonprofits that serve our audience, and we can deliver training for them, and we can they can pay us, we can deliver the training. So that was the idea. We even got into workforce development, or tried to, and that didn't work. So I've got this team, and we're trying all these different revenue streams, and we're all spread really thin, and nothing's working. And at the end of 2024, we're in the red again. Not as bad as the year before, but in the red again. And I get to this year, 2025, and we had an event in March. And I knew in my head, I said, okay, we need to, revenue needs to be X or else. And it wasn't. And I remember it was April 1st of this year, sitting here at my desk. My husband walks in, and I think it had just hit me. And he's like, "Oh, how's your day going?" And I just fell apart because I realized that I had to. I literally did not have another option except to let people go, because I had burned so much cash trying to keep everyone together.
Yeah.
And a couple people had kind of dropped off here and there, but we went from 10. At this point, we were 6, and now we're 4. And it just got to a point of I either let people go or the whole business folds, which of course I'm not going to do. So it was and since then we've kind of regrouped, and we're like, all right, we say no to a lot of things. We are only focusing on like 2 strategies, only those things. We have dug in. We have gotten in the trenches. We've just done what needed to be done, and we're coming out the other side, and here we are, not far off the end of the year, and we're gonna be fine. But it was a tough handful of months.
Yeah, I bet that's real hard. And I think like this is one of the reasons why we've started this podcast, right? Is because if you go to like Silicon Valley guidance, right? It's like fire fast, right? It's got this very like, hey, if you don't do that, like if you don't hit a mark, cut. And for more mission-driven founders, right, where the goal is not just profitability at all costs and repaying investors and private planes or whatever it is, like when the goal is actually touching lives, and those lives are of your customers and of your employees, the personal cost, the emotional cost of letting team members go is really, really Oh, it's you so hard. And I think even in purely profit companies or publicly traded companies, like, if managers have to lay people off, it's really hard there too. But some of the data points is that we've seen is social entrepreneurs or impact entrepreneurs or nonprofit leaders, the emotional toll is higher because of that connection to purpose and the humans that they work with. So I'm kind of curious for you, if you could go back in time and kind of advise your former self, um, would you do anything differently? Right. So not a mistake, it's a learning, right? But if you go back, do you, yeah, would you have done it differently? Would you have maybe let some people go, earlier? Would you have structured that differently? Would you have run different experiments? Kind of a loaded question there, but hopefully
Oh,
you're okay with me
wow.
asking it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's gosh, would I, knowing what I know now, on the people side, I don't think I would have done anything different, because I am very confident knowing now that I literally did everything I could to keep them as long as possible. And that I'm proud of. The spray and pray method that we did, because it felt very kind of panicked, like this isn't working anymore, let's try harder, or let's try this, or someone said, one of my mentors, oh, workforce development, okay, let's try that. Oh, nonprofits, okay, let's try that. Oh, they don't have any money, surprise. So we went down so many rabbit holes, and I think that's what I would probably do a little bit different. But here I am now, knowing that we gave every one of those rabbit holes 110%. And now we know what does work, at least in the moment. I mean, I'm an expert pivoter. I know how to. And fortunately, I'm able to pivot. Yes, I have a team, and yes, we have systems, and we do all these things. But if an opportunity arises, we can act on that. But we also fundamentally, we know what our strategies are, we know what our vision is, we know who we serve, we know where we add value, and we know the impact that we're having, and we're going towards that. I call it my vision goggles, like the horse with the, and
Yeah.
everything needs to run through, my vision goggles. So I might change a few things, but would I be here now if I'd done things differently then? Who knows,
Yeah.
but I'm proud of how we did things from a people perspective. I don't love the outcome,
Yeah.
but we did everything we could.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of great sound bites in there. I kind of love the visual of like the vision goggles as well as to go forward. But it's one of the things that I kind of think about myself, or think about a lot myself is, and this is borrowed and maybe funny referencing Jeff Bezos on a podcast that is not about creating billions of dollars, right? But there is some startup wisdom from him, and one of the ones, this kind of thing that he popularized was this idea of like regret minimalization. And actually, in our podcast episode with the niche from Ashaya, he references that same regret minimalization framework that him and I had talked about also at SoCap, although in like 2016, way long ago. And I think that what research and Moving Worlds, we hosted Dan Ariely, like social scientist, behavioral psychologist, and it turns out in life we regret the things we didn't do, right? And so I kind of love thinking about your model, right? It's like if you hadn't have tried those things, like I think that's really what you would have regretted. And I can hear it now. It's like, I wish things would have gone differently, but I don't regret the things we've tried. Like we went for it. We really gave it our best effort to keep that team together. And it's something that you just see with like real mission driven founders, right? Is that there's this care not just for the growth of the organization, but that the people that are part of it are also benefiting in that growth, and that's hard. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, sometimes it's these hard topics where I think you also get just so much great wisdom. If you don't mind, can we even dive deeper? Like when you actually did have to have that conversation with folks to say, hey, financially, like we just can't support the team in its current size. Like, how did you do that? How did people react? Can you almost like bring us into the room a little bit of how those conversations happened?
Yeah, sure. Oh gosh, let's see. So no one was surprised because I was transparent with the whole team about the financial state that we were in. So it wasn't a, it was not a shock. Disappointment, absolutely.
Sure.
But they were all aware of, and even the current team members who are still with me, they knew, okay, like now we're going to roll up our sleeves and really like dig into these things to come out of the, get out of the trenches. So let's see, the two women that I had to have the conversation with, I knew them because I'd worked with them for years. I knew how they wanted to receive news like this because we've done, Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and I'd ask them, how do you want to receive bad news? How do you want to kind of things like that? So and that wasn't me thinking that was a good idea. I learned that from my mindset coach.
Oh, cool.
So I knew that it would be better for them to read it in an email before having a conversation so that they could process it immediately and kind of come to a call with questions rather than being hit with it, because you never know what emotion someone's going to have.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time crafting the emails to them and saying, let me know when you are ready to talk about it, and we will have a conversation, and I will answer all of your questions. So that's how I did it.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And well, cool is probably the wrong response given the topic at hand. But I think there's two pieces there that I just really want to pull out, because it's like, as an entrepreneur, there's these things that you're always driven by, like the tyranny of now, right? It's like, I got to do these things. So doing some things like being more transparent around like financials, like that takes more work. And it's always a longer term investment, right? In culture, in connection. But the immediate payoff of something like being more transparent with financials is always hard. And if especially if you haven't been transparent with that, it's hard to then start on that road to transparency. And this is one of the examples where sometimes you don't know the challenges that you're going to encounter, but in these like really hard moments, those investments just pay dividends, like being transparent, right? And I think similarly, some of that team building stuff, you mentioned Enneagrams, but it also seems like you just took the time to get to know your staff and even have that conversation of like, hey, I hope we don't have to have hard conversations in the future, but if we do, how do we like to have those conversations? And so I think those are really, really like practical tips that if you haven't like implemented some of those things into your enterprise, then when things get hard, it makes it harder. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Any other, just kind of in going through that process, how do they react? Like, is it like any kind of insights and like, hey, if you're going to be moving that through the entrepreneur, like this is kind of what you can expect, and this is how you can move through that.
Yeah, I when I was transparent about finances with them, that was over like pretty much from the beginning. So that wasn't that. I'm glad I did that, and I would. And of course, transparent to a point, because, it is, I'm 100% owner of the company. So transparent to a point, but enough so that they know like when things are really good, when things were really good, I wasn't just doing this hiring people. I was giving out bonuses.
Yeah.
And I loved being able to reward hard work. So boom times, we were all booming.
Yeah.
Down times, and it wasn't a surprise because it's very obvious that if you have lots of people on the team, that's going to cost. If you're spending money on advertising and it's more expensive, and you don't have as many people coming in, it's not hard to kind of make that connection.
Yeah.
And we all kind of said, okay, what can we do now? What are the things we can do to make a difference? And so it helped that was not a surprise. And I think it was not, they took it, they understood, they were disappointed, they were sad. I think there's a level of why me and not them, because it was of six of us, there were two. So there was definitely some, that was never explicitly said. I explained that before it being asked, because I knew that would be a question. And my explanation was understood. Like, it was very factual. It was very little of it was emotion or feeling. It was all data points. This, this amount of money, this reason, these skills, it was all just fact data points. Which I think helped. Of course, it didn't feel good for anyone, but it was not about performance. It was solely factual.
The reality. And then I'm curious for the people then that were staying with the organization, right? Because those are demotivating moments, right? It's kind of hard on everybody. And then you have a team meeting the next day, right? Or whatever, right? How did you rebuild? It doesn't seem like trust was missing, but how did you rebuild maybe energy, or how did you like reinstill like motivation, during a time that was challenging like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I had conversations with each person individually who was staying. I gave them the opportunity to ask questions. I explained that, yes, we were in a difficult position, but I had made hard decisions, taken actions necessary to give us the best chance of getting through it. We kind of rallied, and we said, okay, in order to get through this month, this is what we need to do. In order to get through next month, this is what we need to do. And we kind of came together and we said, okay, we're going to do this. I'm doing this. You're doing that. You're doing that. Let's do it. And we kept kind of achieving the things that we needed to achieve. And we started to see traction in a new bucket of revenue that we hadn't seen traction yet. And that was working and started to build. And like, it all kind of culminated to, I'm looking at my calendar because it was 2 weeks ago, I hosted a team retreat here in Durango. And my team is all over the world. I've got someone in Switzerland, I've got someone in St. Louis and Albuquerque. So 2 flew in, 1 drove up, and we spent a week together just a couple weeks ago here in Durango. I rented a big house, and we just spent days just getting into it. And that was definitely this moment of like clicking and going and just being in the room together. And we had a whiteboard and we're like, yes, no, we'll do this. And we came up with I remember we were out walking one evening and the sun is setting and I had my dog along with us, and we came up with this decision matrix. And we're, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to say no to more things, and we're going to focus on these things. And we just decided a lot of things together, and it was awesome. And that was a real pivotal kind of like, all right, we're coming out the other side. We're going after this thing, and we've got goals for next year, and we're so that was a really good moment to kind of bring it all together, and a feeling of like, take a deep breath. We've gotten through the really hard months. We're doing well on cash flow. We're looking good getting to the end of the year. Let's, we're not it's not this scarcity mindset. We're not kind of hair on fire. We got to make it work. It's all right. We can do strategy stuff for a couple months. We can think about next year. So that's kind of how we did it.
That's really cool. I'd love to reflect on just a couple of those things to make sure that I'm hearing it right. And then maybe that way you can kind of correct or nudge differently. But it feels like there's a couple things that really helped. And so if I reflect this back, please tell me if this resonates. So first was just a like, in that kind of mode of transparency, just hey, the team, this is what's going on. This is where we're at. Being open, being vulnerable, asking questions, but really inviting people into this is the current realities of the business. These are the challenges. And then also here are the opportunities. And maybe these are some of the things that we've tried. So now we kind of know also what not to try. From there, it feels like there was a regrounding in the vision. Like we're still going after these things and we're doing experiments and we're seeing some traction, right? So, I mean, what's the quote? It's like finding product market fit solves all problems or something like that, right? And so on that road, you start to see traction. I'm sure that's really uplifting. But then it seems like during a time where it was probably hard to invest both time and money, you made that investment in team. You brought everybody together and you were really able to connect. And it seems like it wasn't just business stuff. It was also human connection stuff and
Absolutely.
some play but what's really cool is that I love hearing this because I feel like this is in the zeitgeist to some degree, is you made a decision matrix to also decide on the things that you will not do.
Yes.
And I think it's like really empowering for folks, I think, to just kind of know like, hey, I can say no to things. Can I ask, like, is like, what was this decision matrix? Like, is it, tell us more about what that looked like.
Yeah, sure. So we went from our revenue all coming from one place, B2C. That's all we did for years until end of 2022, when that really wasn't kind of sustaining us anymore. And then in 2023, I learned about grants and we started applying for grants, and we got a lot. I mean, we're close to $500,000 in grants
wow.
as a for-profit company.
Yeah.
Because of our impact, because of our vision, because of the reach and things. So that helped a lot, kind of fill some of those gaps as the B2C wasn't as much as it was, and as we're spending more. And we tried, like I said, workforce development.
Yeah.
We tried nonprofits, and then earlier this year they've just said we had a lot of contracts like that were signed and ready to go with cash coming in with nonprofits, and those went away. Yeah. So, and it's harder for them. And it was last year I was actually speaking. So what I'm getting to is how we started with one revenue stream. We then diversified way too big. And now we're very kind of clear on a couple. So that's kind of the story arc of where I'm going. Last year, I was speaking on stage at a conference, and as I do when I do any public speaking or podcast, I set our vision, 1 million women by 2030. And at the end of the conference, someone who works for Verizon came up to me and said, no way, that's our vision too. Because they have one of the things that they do, Verizon, is they have a program called Small Business Digital Ready. And I was aware of that, and I always thought, ooh, that's competition. It's Verizon. And they came up to me afterward and said, that's our vision too. We should partner. And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, Verizon, you want to partner with us? Well, here we are a year later, and we have they're a huge revenue stream. We have partnered with them for a year. They love what we're doing, and we're going to go into it next year. So when we nailed that, when we landed that partnership with them, we kind of thought, hang on, maybe there's something here. So we started speaking to other brands that want to get in front of our audience, because we have a very large audience of women small business owners. Women spend money in their community. They invest in things. And sure enough, there's a market for it. So one of our revenue streams is brand partnerships. Banks, fintech, insurance companies, software companies that want to get in front of our audience, because my audience trusts me. If I say, go and use this tool, they probably are. So we have this double flywheel now, where we have our individuals coming in, and that's who we serve. Our individuals are coming in. We're giving them all the tools, all the skills that they need to start their own business and have an impact and that ripple effect.
Yep.
And we have businesses that are also have they're mission aligned, their values aligned with us. They are looking to get in front of this audience, and they're giving us revenue, and we're passing on, to them, and we have this double flywheel, and that's what we're focusing on. Those two revenue streams, while the other things that, we love working with nonprofits, but
Sure.
it's time intensive and it's not serving us from a revenue perspective right now.
Yeah.
But they can send their people through from
Yep.
from the individual perspective. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're doing now.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I have questions down a previous comment around grants, and then secondly around building some of your first commercial contracts. Maybe really quickly on grants, is there um, any guidance that you would have for other entrepreneurs in terms of, hey, when we got our first grant money, and maybe even just like from a mechanics, like, did you have to create a fiscal sponsorship with another organization? Did you have to receive it through any special like legal instrument, like a program related investment, or was it just kind of cash into your organization? And was it from foundations or government? Maybe really quickly, if you could just kind of explain what that's like, because I think it's a brilliant source of capital for impact entrepreneurs that is sometimes overlooked. And one of the things is just like demystifying it. Like people are like, oh, I don't even know how to apply. So yeah, any guidance of what worked well for you?
Yep. So to answer a couple of those questions, because when you say all those things like, did you have to have a fiscal sponsor or government or, things like, no, it was cash, all of it. We are at $445,000 in non-diluted cash in the bank, and we could do with it what we want.
Understood. Cool.
So, and that's from a handful of different, everything from 5,000 to 250. Like those are the amounts. And we're for profit. So all of the grants were especially for profit companies that are having a impact. So we had to prove some sort of positive impact.
Yeah.
And because of the vision and the mission and the women that we have reached already, that's why we've been successful with grants. Like we've already proven that we can do the thing. We have thousands of women who are successful because they've gone through our programming. I feel like a little bit of a big-headed saying that. So we already had the evidence to kind of say, this is what we have done. With grant funding, we can do more.
Yeah.
So and I would say look for grants that are for profit, because we did do a fiscal sponsor and we didn't have any success with it. And we actually just kind of closed that down literally yesterday. So we tried it for a year and didn't really have much success there. So any grants that are specifically for for-profit companies, and almost all of them are going to be, but you need to have like an impact, it needs to be an impact business, social entrepreneur, that sort of, so not just any business can just throw together and say, oh yeah, I'm going to go for grants. Like, are you really purpose-driven? Are you really like serving people and making the world a better place? And I love being for profit, and I really love owning my entire business because I get to make all the decisions. Like if I want to create 10 scholarships for people to go through our program, I get to do that. Just like that. I can make it up out of thin air. I can, if we want to do something that is impact driven, that is purpose driven beyond what we're already doing, we can, because we're for profit, and because we are profitable, we are able to kind of do really, really awesome, impactful stuff. So having really clear vision and impact driven side of the business. I mean, it should be the whole part of the business, in my opinion. And what was the other thing I was going to say for grants? I hired a grant writer for my very first grant, and she wrote this grant, and this was for a grant from the state of Colorado that was for $250,000. Very first grant we got.
Wow.
And she knew how to write grants, and she wrote it as like a story. So she told a story in the grant application that she said when someone reads a grant application, they want to go on the story with you. They want to understand the journey. And she wrote this in story like a story. And we got the grant, and I have repurposed her language for all the other grants that we've received
Oh, wow.
to date, including the Cartier Women's Initiative.
Yeah, very cool. So, and just out of curiosity, how did you find a grant writer? Was it like a peer connection? Did you go to the internet
Yes.
to find? Yeah.
No, she had previously done some copywriting for us, and she had just mentioned that she used to write grants.
Oh,
And I
okay.
said, "Oh, cool. Can you do this thing as well?"
Yeah.
And she did. And whatever I paid her has is more than 100x
Yeah.
what we're with the grants.
I would imagine. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. And then maybe for listeners, just to zero in on that term fiscal sponsorship, in case anybody's not aware, essentially as a for-profit company, you can partner. Essentially, there's different purveyors of it, but nonprofits, and they sort of say vouch for your social impact. And so people can donate in a 501c3, at least in the US, United States here, in a 501c3 tax deductible manner. And then that organization essentially becomes a steward, and then they can deploy that capital to you as a for-profit organization, provided there's some proof that shows how it's for impact. And there's a few different providers of these, and there's some great guidance like on the internet about fiscal sponsorships, and we'll get to all the legalities. There's actually, I think, 3 different types of it. So anyway, if that's of interest, ask the AI for some good guidance of what type is best for you. But interesting to hear that you had tried it, but you didn't even need it, and you really just were able to get those unrestricted funds into the business. And then, interesting to hear about the importance of the grant writer and telling that story. Yeah, it's like you have to translate that over. But I think the other thing that you mentioned, and this almost goes back to the earlier conversation about the investments up front in transparency, then really helped you when you got into this really hard time of needing to let some people go. But it feels like this investment as well of telling your impact story and making sure that your business existed for impact then really is what enabled you to apply for that grant, right? Like if you didn't have that impact data, you would have never had a grant. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah. So just like that investment in vision, that investment in actually telling your impacts, reporting on impact. And we've seen that a number of places. Like if you don't have a public facing impact report, to try and even get some commercial partnerships like you did with Verizon, without that public, there's just no reason to believe that that's why you really exist. And it seems like that investment that you did created that. So really quickly, let's switch gears then into commercial contracts. So sometimes when you go into commercial, this breaks organizations, because now all of a sudden you have these like very complicated buying agreements, and they take forever, and then they have these super long payables and everything. You're nodding your head to some degree, but without disparaging any of your clients. Even though I can say from my own experience, whenever I joke about this with some of our corporate buyers, they always laugh. Like they're like, apologies in advance. We're going through this process. It's going to suck. And I jokingly say, like, at some point, I'm going to actually create an award, for who actually has the worst process, because everybody thinks they do. But just from your own experience, is there anything that really helped you through that corporate contracting? Like, did you have to hire a lawyer? Were you able to do it with yourself? Did you find some pro bono lawyers, legal support in order to go through it? On the financial side of things, were there any big upfront costs that you had to figure out how to kind of pay for, and any financial instruments in order to do? Or how did you end up building those and securing those commercial contracts?
Yeah, so the Verizon thing, I mean, it literally came from, hey, we got the same vision, let's partner, and they put us in touch, and we kind of did the contract, and that was kind of our first point of entry into working with a big organization and going through contracts and everything that kind of goes along with that. So and they were really patient with us, and they explained the process really well. So that was a really good how to kind of get into it. And then from there, I do have attorneys up in Denver that are fantastic. I mean, they're expensive, but they're good. And we had them review some of the contracts, and we had them draw up a kind of a basic service agreement that we now are able to use with new companies that we work with, new brands. So we've got that pretty well figured out. We've also one of my team members, she's incredible, and she kind of runs all the partner stuff. She is kind of out there talking to people, does the discovery calls, kind of gets them on board, goes through the contract process, the payable. She does all of that. And she's gone through a lot of different roles with the company, and this is, this is just a perfect fit, and it's settled really nicely. So she's learned a ton along the way. I'm a big believer in investing in my team if they need kind of upskilling in anything. So earlier this year, when we kind of thought, I wonder if this is a thing, she went and did some research, and she found some companies that kind of mentor you and coach you to do exactly this. So we invested, I want to say it was maybe about $8,000 for her to be coached through like how to speak to a potential brand partner, what to offer, what the different tiers look like, what they would get access, like the whole shebang. And based on that, what she learned, we landed a $35,000 contract. So ROI, awesome. And that knowledge she's been able to kind of take on to the other brand partners that we have, and we're building them into our full ecosystem. So yes, investment up front, absolutely. I'm a big believer in hiring for passion because skills can be taught.
Yeah, very cool. It resonates so much. Julia, I just love this conversation. I feel like we've gone into like company building, finding first customers, hiring first people, letting go for the first time, like, and then finding new growth out of the back end, building grants, building commercial partnerships. I really, really feel like we could keep going, but we're getting close to the end here. And so I do want to jump into our impact round. So I get to ask you like a few rapid fire questions. And so what is one mistake that you've made that you really hope future entrepreneurs will not make?
Again, I'm not a big fan of the M word.
Yeah, as soon as I asked the question, I was like, I know.
I do. I'm a big believer in you either win or you learn something. So now that being said, I think when I first got started as an entrepreneur, I heard like a business coach and mindset coach, and I remember thinking to myself, that is complete hogwash. You don't need a coach to do things. You just do things. But as I started with a business coach who I still have, and my mindset coach I still have since 2017, I know the power of outsiders like looking in and being able to give advice and kind of say, have you tried this? Or because you can get so stuck in your head and so stuck in what you're doing and not kind of think outside the box. So being able to bounce ideas off of them. And I think mostly on the mindset perspective, I really thought that was hogwash when I first started. But now I know I'm very self-aware. I know what I'm good at. I know where my strengths don't lie and where I can rely on other people. I know the power of like pausing and putting my feet flat on the ground, taking deep breaths, looking beyond, and just kind of, reflecting. I know the power of habits. I know how important it is to get outside and go for walks. And, just whether it's a brain kind of mindset thing, if it's body and kind of nervous system and regulating my breathing, if I'm getting anxious, if it's, like I said, habits and those things. But I didn't know those before I got started. I've learned them along the way with support from my mindset coach. So invest in experts, in coaches, in mentors, especially mindset.
Yeah, I love that. Next question. What is one of the biggest challenges that you've had in fundraising? And I know you've like gone after both grants, right? And you've been successful in some of those, but yeah, what is one of the biggest challenges that you've had? And what is one thing that you wish all funders knew about social entrepreneurs?
Okay. I like this question. And you're right. I am very fortunate to have bootstrapped from the beginning, from day one, profitable from day one. A lot of that is because I have very smart people around me who have given me good advice, but I have done enough pitches and enough spoken to enough investors and funders along the way. And I think what I hear a lot is they want to know kind of short term, CAC versus LTV. They want all these numbers. And I think what I would impart on them, especially now with AI and with the importance of human connection and building trust and having authenticity, is I would love for impact investors to kind of really understand the real ROI is in trust, in long-term outcomes, because we're coming into an age where there's a lot of lack of trust, and there's a lot of like, is that real or is that fake? And at the end of the day, you build trust over time with customers, and that long-term outcome is so much more important, I think, than the immediate. What's the CAC? What's the LTV? Like, rattle off all those numbers.
Yeah, cool. I love that. One of our other guests, Manoj from Drinkwell, was quoting, I think, one of his mentors who shared that, and I'll get the quote a little bit wrong, but like, trust is not a dot; it's a line, right? And it's connected by these like different exchanges that you have over time. Then all of a sudden, that's cool. So anyway, cool, kind of similar theme there. What is one leadership or management skill that, and actually I want to add a little bit more context. I love how much work you've done with this. And I think your openness, like working with coaches, seems like probably a ton of introspection as well. But like, even with all of that, what is the one leadership or management skill that you wish you could that you could turn on? And if you could, it would make you even more effective.
So you hear a lot of people talk about like where they're most comfortable in the business, and where they're in their flow, and because I have done every role in the business, I have done customer support, I have done marketing, I have done the vision, the strategy, I've done it all. I am most comfortable in operator mode when I'm kind of in the trenches, when I'm figuring out the tech. That's where I'm most comfortable, because it's what I know, it's how I got started. It's not putting myself out there. It's not dreaming too big. So that's, and I fall back into that. And I know when I'm doing it, I'm like, nope, other people can do that. I am going to take the business to the next level by, sending that LinkedIn request, or submitting for a podcast, to be on a podcast, or applying for a grant, or going to an in-person event, speaking on a stage. And those things are just a little bit outside my comfort zone, but that's where I need to be. And I'm better about kind of turning that on than I used to be, but it's still something that I have to actively remind myself. So that's probably what I would choose, is getting out of the operator brain.
Yeah.
And going more into that just outside my comfort zone, in my stretch zone is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
To be more in that CEO role.
Yeah. I'm smiling probably like an idiot right now, because it's just like, it resonates so much. I that connects with me so much. And I have to hype myself up to go do some of these things that are in that stretch zone. Cool. Thank you. And you already hinted at this, so I wonder if I already know it already, but what is a quote, ritual, or activity that you turn to for strength when things are super hard?
Now I'm interested to know what you would think. So let's see. I'm going to say a couple things. I walk a lot. I get out. We're very fortunate to live on a lot of acreage, so I have lots of walking trails. So me and my dog, we walk a lot, and just getting out in the fresh air is really, really important for me to kind of get outside of this bubble that is my kind of laptop. But another thing is, I have started probably over the last year or so, really getting into habits and habit stacking. I'm not sure if you've probably read Atomic Habits by James Clear. And
Great book.
This is gonna sound silly, but there's two things that I do every single morning that set me up for success. and follow me through the day. And it's like, if I can do these two things, then I've already won, and I will keep doing more things. And it is, I make my bed. So I don't know if you're familiar with Admiral McCraven. And he said, what's the thing you should do if you want to change the world? You should start your day by making your bed. So the very first thing, I make my bed and I empty the dishwasher. Those are literally the first things that I do, because if I don't, or when I didn't, and I would walk past my bedroom and in the middle of the day and I would see it was unmade, or I'd walk into the kitchen and there's dishes in the sink because it's not been emptied yet, I'd be like, oh, I can't even do those things. How am I expected to do all these other things throughout the day? But if I do those first two things, first thing, get them done, I'm like, let's do it, day. Let's what else can I do?
Yeah, I love that.
So just little things like that those routines of getting out, walking, and those two things. First thing, I'm winning immediately, set me up for successful days. Yeah.
Love those. And yeah, I'm with you on the those like first things out of the morning are so clutch. Very cool. Who is an entrepreneur that you admire?
Oh gosh, there's like so many. Erica Cole. She's a fellow Cartier Women's Initiative fellow. Erica Cole. She runs a company called No Limits, but it's spelled with a B, like limb. Because you might know her. She was at SoCap. Cool. She's an amazing human being. She's doing amazing things. She's built this amazing company also based on her own personal experience. Yeah. So her clothing line is for people. It's an accessibility clothing line. She lost her lower limb in a car accident. She couldn't find kind of good looking clothes that would work. Fashionable clothes that work, and she created a company that now does it. And she's got, these amazing investors. She was on Shark Tank. She's in Walmart, but she would not tell you that. She is so humble, and she's just so inspirational. She's awesome.
Very cool. I remember her presentation. Yeah, very well. Very cool. Well, my next question is, who else should we interview for this show? And so maybe you've already answered it. Cool.
Yes.
Okay. Then very last question, Julia, where can we follow you? How can we support your incredible vision and organization? And how can we help?
Awesome. Let's see. So LinkedIn is probably a good place to find me. Julia Taylor. I think my URL is Julia the Geek. I'm everywhere as Julia the Geek. If we have an app. GeekPack is a free app folks can join. So if you're a business owner and you want to learn some tech stuff, come and join us in GeekPack. GeekPack.com is an easy place. If you're interested in getting in front of thousands of women business owners, email me, julia@geekpack.com, and we'll see what the opportunities are.
Very cool. Julia, so fun listening to you, so fun learning from you. Congrats on all the incredible work that you've done. I know it's such a hard road, company building, but just incredible leverage that you have with the size of your team, and the reach that you're creating is really, really inspirational. So I'm touched by all your work and your commitment to mission and your team and your users. So it's really, really fun to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Mark. It was an honor, pleasure to be here.